Welcome to the 2025 core budget meeting orientation tonight. It is March 19th, 2025, 6 p.m. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order and start with the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We will proceed to roll call. There you go.
President Lorang is excused. Vice President Hoot is excused. Commissioner Nance is excused. Commissioner Peterson.
Here.
Commissioner Dodd.
Here.
Budget Member Donna Moore. Here. Budget Member George Torres.
Present.
Budget Member Shelley Olvera.
She's on mute, but she's there. There she is.
I'm here. Thank you. Sorry.
Budget Member Brian Kelsey is excused, and so is Budget Member Diana Van Riegel.
Member C, Rob.
Any modifications, additions, changes to the agenda?
Well, we'll remove elections of budget committee officers and move that to the next meeting.
All right. We will proceed now to the election of the budget committee officers.
We're going to scratch that one.
Or scratch that.
Yep.
We'll proceed to special presentations and reports by outside resources, staff, and government officials.
How's everybody doing today? Excellent, good.
Everybody doesn't remember Matt Apkin from last year. He led us through our budget process. Matt is with Marina Co. He's been elected or selected by the commission to be the budget officer for the 2025 budget process. And he's going to walk us through budget orientation this evening.
Yeah. So budget orientation, kind of what I like to do is just kind of go through the really basic statutes and regulations that we're required to follow through the budget process. So wait until then. There we go.
Records like that screen instead.
Yes, I think we're good, right?
Yep.
All right. So, this first slide after kind of the title page just gives a very high level review of the process. So the process starts with once you guys have a quorum and we start actual budget meetings, you appoint a budget officer. And actually that's already happened, which I believe was done by the commission,
yeah,
which is me. Then the preparer, then I will, with help from city or golly, I'm gonna have an issue tonight, I guess. I'm gonna, with port staff, put together a proposed budget that will then be brought to the budget committee to review and to question, to approve at some point. So during that process, the port will publish in the newspaper and then also on their website that there's going to be a budget committee meetings, when they are, where they are. You have to publish the newspaper anywhere between 5 and 30 days before the actual meeting, and then on the website can happen at least 5 days in advance of that newspaper publication. Then we're gonna have the budget committee meetings. We've set up for 3 budget committee meetings. If we need one and not the other ones, that's fine. If we use 2 or all 3, that's fine. Just makes it so the process goes easier and so we don't have to notice that we're gonna have those budget meetings.
Sort of what that process looks like too is me and Matt, well, I work with staff, right? So we'll meet with each member of the staff and we'll go through the portions of the business that they oversee at the port. So events with events, operations with operations, Genevieve over administration, et cetera, and the pieces that I oversee. And then under the direction of the commission and their strategic business plans, as well as their initiatives in the year, we'll start to put together a budget based on that. That will come in front of the budget committee, at which point in time you'll be able to ask questions. And really, honestly, one of the biggest things you guys do is another set of eyes that go, did you catch that? And every year at some point in time, we're like, no, we didn't, we missed it, right? So another 10 set of eyes is that much better to have. And so we do sort of depend on you guys to look these things over and go, but did you think about this? And sometimes we're like, we did, and it's a great question, and this is where we came up with. A lot of times you go, well, did you think about it like this? And we go, oh, we really didn't. That's another way to look at it. So there's a lot of value that we get from the budget committee just from 10 different people looking at it a different way. After so long of us looking at this, numbers start to bleed together and run together. That's why we pay him, to make sure that we don't all gloss over, but it does happen. So there's a huge value to having those 10 folks look at it. If we run into something that is not an easy change or an easy fix, sometimes you can pass a budget and say, hey, we passed the budget as long as this, this, and this are changed. And we go, yeah, those are easy. We move those. Other times we run into something and maybe the discussion is, really, that doesn't make a lot of sense here. And now that affects this, this, and this. And it's like, you're right. We need to go back to the drawing table to the drawing board because we didn't think about that. And that happens. You've certainly been part of that. We'll go back. We'll move things around. We'll make adjustments. Now we have these new thoughts to think about. We'll come back to the second meeting and the same thing can happen. And we can come back as many times as we need to, as long as we have time to notice the meeting and get it passed by the end of June. If we don't get it passed, chaos. But we've never had that not happen. We sure came close. Last year, I think we were able to pass it in a single meeting. George thinks we did it in 2 or 3, but we passed it fairly quickly last year. This year, we're going to make some pretty substantial adjustments to the way that we are handling our budget this year. This is, in theory, the last time that we're going to do this. I certainly hope that will be some of the legacy that I leave behind, is a way in which the port handles their budget for the foreseeable future. Because what we've gone through is a number of iterations where every year we have to relearn this thing. And then you look at last year's numbers and you're like, that would be valuable if we'd had it for the last 5 years, but it's moved categories 3 times. So now it's not that valuable. The real benefit of having a budget that's consistent is it gives you this data set over time that you can go, oh, look, this number continually goes down. This number continually goes up. This number always stays flat. And we can start making some much more educated business decisions around our budgets when we have that. So if there's anything that I hope I leave behind and hand off to the next guy, it's a set of numbers in a way that the port can say, this is how we handle our budget. Fortunately for us, one more year, we have to sort of suffer through the fact that we've made some changes to it. And they'll be fairly substantial. So I think we'll have some good conversations, but I hope it's the last time we have to do this. I hope that when everybody comes back, and I certainly encourage you to come back if we don't bore you to tears, because it's certainly helpful to have that same sort of group looking at it year after year after year after year. So I guess the point was being that, we can have as many meetings as we need to, or as few. And that's sort of what that breakdown is there. But we have the 3 that are scheduled, and hopefully that's enough. Typically that's enough, but we'll see. But there's certainly no pressure from the commission or from the staff that should be felt by this group to pass this budget. There are certain times where that's been sort of an overarching theme of, hey, the commission came up with the budget, staff came up with the budget, you 5 are here to sit here and be the stamp of approval. And that's really the exact opposite of what's supposed to happen. So there shouldn't be a pressure to pass this budget until like June 27th. And then we got to really get serious about it. But we have time, and we built it on purpose this way to have time. We're starting this process a month and a half earlier than the city for that exact reason, so that we don't feel that pressure and we have the time to get it right. That's all. Sorry, Matt.
I just wanted to reconfirm our next 4 budget meetings. Looks like we have Tuesday, April 22nd at 6 p.m. The second meeting is April 29th, Tuesday at 6 p.m. The third meeting is May 13th, 6 p.m. Tuesday.
Correct.
And then the fourth potential to adopt the fiscal budget
So that,
will be June 3rd.
That's a commission meeting, not a budget committee meeting.
Okay.
So that you guys, so once they pass the budget, you guys, is that, no, yeah. Once you
So
guys pass the
once the
budget,
budget committee
you guys
approves
adopt
the
it,
budget,
approves, thank
then
you.
it goes to the commission to adopt the budget.
You guys can approve the budget at the first meeting, the second meeting, the third meeting, or whatever we need to do to get you guys feeling like you're, have a budget you can approve and feel good about approving.
And so with that, I'll kind of just point right back to this kind of overall outline. So you can see, and I don't know, if I can see this up there, can they? No. Okay, so the fifth box along the long row says approve proposed budget and tax levy. So that's something the budget committee does, is you guys would have that opportunity to say, yes, I approve this budget, and yes, we approve the tax levy that we want to put out there. After that point, then there's another notice that goes out with a summary of the overall budget, and that gets published in the newspaper. And that gives notice that there's going to be a budget hearing before the commission. And so when that goes out, then people who want to come in and discuss it with the commission have that opportunity to come in, share their remarks. At that point, commission would then determine, yes, we accept the approved tax levy that the budget committee has set forth. And then in addition to that, if you were to have like a local option levy, which I don't think we're gonna ever have to worry about here, we get to kind of skip that up part. And so we're just gonna keep going straight across, which then goes to the adopt the budget and make appropriations. And so that's the piece that the commission does. And that's gonna be handled at that June 3rd meeting. Again, it's early in June, so if there needs to be changes, we can come back to another regular scheduled commission meeting to make those adjustments. And then the levy has to be sent to the county by July 15th to have that actually happen. So we're gonna go to the next page. And so it's kind of going over a real high level. What's a budget? A budget is the financial plan for the port. Like Jeremiah was saying, the idea is to take the work that the commission has done and their priorities, and then create a budget that's going to support accomplishing those priorities. And so the budget that the port has is one fiscal year. So it goes from July 1st through June 30 of the following year. We base the budget on estimates of revenue and expenditures and other requirements. The port is required to have a budget and have legal appropriations, which is kind of the resolution at the end of this process. And that resolution is what dictates what the port can and cannot spend. And so if the port didn't establish a budget, they would not legally be able to appropriate or spend any money. And so that makes all work come to a grinding halt. So that's kind of the important reasoning of why there is that budget process.
Will they receive the budget before the budget meeting?
Yes, so
Yeah,
our plan is to send out the budget a week before the budget meeting. So that budget will also then be available at the port offices for public. If they want to come in and look at it, you'll all get a copy. I think we'll determine if you guys are like, no, I want a hard copy. I'm sure that Carrie Ann can print one out. Otherwise, you'll get an email that has, here's the proposed budget to review.
And something that I did last year, and I'm going to try to continue with it this year. I don't know if me and you did it because you've looked at some of the budgets, but with some of the new folks and some of the commissioners, once you have that budget in your hand, I like to set up a meeting where we can meet individually. so that if you have questions or things that I didn't consider, I can have answers for you at the meeting. There's nothing worse for someone to show up at a meeting, ask a question, I don't have the answer, and then it puts up behind in the process because I wasn't able to get it, especially if you can give me a call and be like, hey, what's this? Then I can be like, oh, cool. I do need to be able to speak about that or whatever the thing is. So anything you can give me advance to be prepared for, the less opportunity is there for us to hit a roadblock and be like, we don't know. Now we got to schedule another meeting. So I'll try to set that up with everybody, but feel free when you get that budget in your hand for the first time, just start jotting down questions, giving me a call, or we can come by the office or whatever. But it certainly helps everything flow better if I have answers to questions that you know you're going to have in that meeting.
Okay, the next page is about resources and requirements. So in Oregon, they budget resources versus requirements. So resources is cash on hand, future receipts that you're going to receive within the fiscal year. And then requirements are expenditures going out, other budget transactions, and money being held for future use. The next page kind of goes over our estimates. So we make estimates down to the like line item detail. And we go through that and we discuss it and we say, okay, what are the things that are going to be happening this next year? We put dollar amounts to them for things that we know. Sometimes it's, we don't know there's going to be a plumbing issue. Likely we're going to have to put $5,000 towards it because maybe it's one plumbing issue, maybe it's two, maybe it's, sometimes you do it and you're like, okay, there's also a contingency line because we don't always get it right. It's hard to estimate things that haven't happened that could happen. And so there's always kind of this amount that we keep in what we call contingency, which would then go back to the commission to say, hey, we knew we were going to need to spend extra money, which we put in contingency. We didn't really know what it was for, but here's one of the things that we think this should be used for. And then the commission gets to make that choice. Additionally, your resources and your requirements in Oregon are required to balance. And so you have to have a balanced budget. And then additionally, the estimates of resources and requirements must be made in good faith. So we can't sit there and say, hey, last year we could only levy 4,000 in property taxes, but we're going to put in our budget next year that we're going to get 100,000. We know it's not going to happen. And so if we were to do that, that would be not making a good faith estimate.
And you will see us make some estimates this year that are jumps. We're going to see a jump in the campground. We've drastically improved campground operations with the online booking. So we're going to see the campground make more than it's made in previous years. We're going to go over budget this year on that one. That's good. Same thing with events. The bridge is always really consistent within, there's times we've put down that we thought we were going to make well over $3 million, but it kind of makes pretty consistently $3 million. So that one will stay pretty much the same, but you will see us, and there is a push on my side as well, right? I mean, I push for us to increase revenue in those particular ones. So it always will be in good faith, but coming from the private sector and not the public sector, I'm always one that's going to be trying to push for how do we get more events in this place? What do we need to do? One more wedding. What do we got to book? Hey, let's run a special at the campground. Let's find ways to increase revenue. So I always sort of am pushing for that. So you'll see that this year in the budget where you're like, hey, that's a pretty good increase, and it's because we're going to go after it. So
one area that we've always kind of been pretty conservative in is the interest earnings, because who knows what interest rates are going to do. So, so the budget committee meetings, all meetings are subject to public meeting laws. The presiding officer will be elected at the first actual budget meeting, which will be the next one. A quorum is required to conduct business. So again, tonight, this isn't business, it's just orientation. So we don't have to have a quorum. At the next meeting to kind of proceed, we'd need a quorum.
I'm just going to keep doing this. I'm just going to interject as we go.
That's fine.
Just for everybody's reference, Diane Van Winkle does not want to be chair this year. She'd feel like there's a potential she might miss some of the meetings if we go deeper into needing this. So just to throw that out there, Van Winkle had put her hat in, or her hat in the ring, but now she doesn't want it. So we'll need to elect. It won't be Donna and Van Winkle like last year.
So the majority of the committee is required to take action. The committee can request and receive additional information from district officials. So if, and when you say that, it's a collective. If one person's like, hey, I want more information, but it's not shared in the view by everyone else, it's really up to the committee as a whole, kind of like the commission as a whole. If they want the port to go forward with a certain track or train of thought or method, they act as a commission as a whole. And so they would need kind of that majority of the commission to direct that. Same thing with the budget committee. If you guys wanted additional information, it would be, hey, can we get this additional information? There's probably going to be things that you guys ask that we just answer because it's easy. It's something that's there. It's not critical, but it would be like, hey, we want you to go back and rework this thing.
Yeah.
It would be something that we would want the consensus of the committee before we spend the time to go and do that work.
Ted said, hey, part of the reason that the budget's so high is because you guys only use pens, you switch to pencils, right? And it just kind of sat there in the room. I'd be like, is that something we should go back and look at? Is that we all need to move to pencils and get right? So there will be times where you'll see somebody sort of speak up and give direction, and I'll make sure that I understand that that direction is coming as a consensus from everyone, or if there's some place in the room, it really won't be me. I'll look to the chair and be like, we should probably get a motion on this one, right? And so we'll look for a motion to make sure. And we've certainly had, budget meetings in the past where, some of the commission or some of the council, the committee has felt a certain way and some has felt the other way. We've had budgets that have not passed 10-0 before, right? We've had ones that have passed 6-4. So it's possible. I don't think that's the direction that we're going to head. We'll certainly try to do it, but we could have an outlier that for whatever reason can't get behind that particular piece of the budget. And that doesn't stop it from getting adopted.
The next slide's about quorum. So in your guys' case, you actually fit in this top section. There's 5 people from the governing body, and then there are 5 additional people elected to the budget committee. So you have a total of 10. Your quorum is going to be 6 people to make decisions. You'll have to do that, which I don't think will be an issue. We haven't seen that in the past. So what does the budget committee do? The budget committee reviews the budget document. They hear the budget message. If public comes and provides comment, you listen to and consider the public comment. You discuss and revise the budget as needed, and then you approve the budget and you approve property taxes. Like it says, the budget is a public document once it's released to the committee. So you guys are going to get the same copy of the budget that would be available to anybody else. It's not like you guys get it first, other people get it later. It's a public document once it's provided. The public, as I said earlier, has the right to inspect the document. It'll be available at the commission or the port's offices. So, and if people want a copy of it, they can have a copy of it. That can be charged if that's the direction that you guys want to go. The budget message is prepared by or under the direction of the executive officer. It explains the budget document, describes the financial policies, explains changes since the last year. It has to be in writing, but it can be delivered by anyone. And so that's usually the first thing that happens at a budget meeting. Once the budget chair and co-chair are selected, usually you move into the budget message, which is shared, and then often you go through the actual budget document.
And I tend to be pretty conservative in my budget message. I keep it really sort of fine-tuned and exactly what is specifically supposed to be in a budget message. There are certain budget messages that you'll read that do a lot of forward thinking and a lot of sort of representing what the commission's sort of missions and values are and the strategic business plan. And you can see them turn into almost a political piece. I tend to keep mine pretty focused on the requirements of public budget law. So just if you happen to look at mine and compare it to maybe Port of Hood River, which I think theirs last year was like 6 pages, right? Mine is fairly dialed in on just what's required by budget law. I don't typically like to speak on behalf of the commission if I don't have to.
So the public hear public comment. So on the date of the budget committee meeting, people will be able to comment. Any person can make any question or may ask questions about the budget, have any comments that they want to relate. Plead for you guys to make changes to the budget. I mean, I've seen all sorts of different things that people will do. I don't know that we did this last year. If you needed to, you could be like, we're gonna place a time limit on how long people can speak. Doesn't seem like there's been a lot of people that come and want to provide comment, but I've been in places where they will cap public comment at like an hour or an hour and a half because they will have people sitting there waiting to just continue to make comments. So they'll be like, okay, you have 3 minutes. We're gonna stop it at an hour and a half. I don't think we'll have to deal with that here. And then
it'll typically operate like a standard commission meeting does. Like there'll be an opportunity for the public to comment on it. They'll have their 3 minutes, and then they're certainly welcome to sit in the audience and watch you guys do your work.
so then additional meetings can be added if needed. As already discussed, the next meeting is April 22nd at 6 p.m. here. So again, this kind of goes back into the discussion and the revision of the budget. There's going to be discussion, and if the majority feels there should be changes, then we can make those revisions. It's possible to reduce or increase estimates of both resources and requirements through kind of whatever the budget committee decides. And like it says, the budget committee may, or you may approve the budget at the first meeting, or it may take several meetings. So overall, the same meeting notices are required for each of those meetings that we have. And then there's a sample here of a motion to approve the budget. I move that the budget committee of the Port of Cascade Locks approve the budget for the 25-26 fiscal year in the amount of whatever it ends up being. Those are just numbers from something in the past. Same thing, the next page goes over the approval of the tax levy. It's very similar to this. I'm not going to read it because
we forgot to do that last year.
Don't
Remember that?
mean anything.
Last
Yes,
year
I
we
do.
forgot to do it. We had to call a meeting to approve because we got through it. And I think we got through it in the first meeting, George, but we had to have another meeting to come back and pass the tax levy.
Are there any questions?
It's not the most fun one. The next one's pretty fun. I like it. Do you like it?
So I
Yeah,
understand.
I like it. So
I understand we'll have a draft budget to look at a week before the next meeting, April 22nd.
Yeah, so I think we have in our budget calendar, it'll be like April 16th that the budget will be available.
Thank you.
It's anything like last year, then it should be pretty straightforward.
it will be straightforward. I think it'll actually be more straightforward this year, but it will be different. And so the problem with that, I think we'll understand the budget. I just think when we look back and we're like, oh, that would have been helpful, those things won't be as helpful this year. Like we'll be like, yeah, that used to be here, now it's here. And you're like, well, that makes sense why this is double what it was last year, right? And so there's some of that to sort of sort through. Like I think what we are going to come up with is going to be a pretty straightforward, that this is replicable and understandable, and something that whoever the next, I'm sort of we're all stewards of these positions, right? We have them for the time being, we do the best we can with them, and then they go on to someone else. And so this is something that I think the last few folks have not been able to rein in, and so it just keeps getting handed off to somebody. I really want to be able to hand off something to somebody for them to go, well, cool, that piece works, I don't have to worry about it. And so there'll be a little bit more work this year. But I think it is straightforward. I want those data sets for you guys to be able to go, hey, listen, did you notice this is continuing to trend upwards? And I'm like, I didn't really see that.
Yeah.
We just don't get to provide that stuff to you guys yet, but we will. We're on a good course.
I think one of the other things to note is the budget document has 2 years of actuals. Those are supposed to be the audited actuals. As I'm sure most of you are aware, we are waiting on the auditors to finish some audits to be able to have actuals, but we're gonna put in the numbers that we have as if they were actuals. In addition to that, it then provides kind of the current budget and then what the proposed budget's gonna be. You'll notice over the last couple of years, we have made changes in departments. You have to let the budget kind of run off those categories or those columns that I just said before you can actually remove something out of the budget completely. And so there's still a couple of those that is like, we haven't used this in 2 years. The data's there for like the actuals, but we didn't budget it this last year and we're not budgeting it in the future. So just realize those
Waiting
will
for it
be
to
there.
fall
It'll
off.
just be something that falls off in the future. And so that's another piece where it's like, as we move forward, some of those are gonna fall off. But I think for the most part at this point, we've got a good kind of grasp of what departments are gonna be there. There's just gonna be some changes of what's represented in each department. And so I think with some of the changes, we've kind of been like, okay, let's really focus this in and make sure that this is how we want to do it, and we're gonna do it that way going forward.
And really a lot of that's come from some changeover at the staff level, right? Melissa's been doing our books for 27 years, right? And so pretty committed in the way she was doing things and the way that she understood things, right? So to change that was somewhat difficult. With Melissa retiring, we have sort of the opportunity this year to make some of those changes. We now don't have anybody in-house that's doing finance. We have Matt from Marinico that's doing finance, right? So we have an approach that, you know, the port can fall apart over and over and over and over again, as long as the money stays right. If the money's right, then whatever team comes together to put this thing at a staff level, at a commission level, at a citizen level, if they know the money's right, then they can take this the port in any direction that they want, that they see fit as far as the mission goes. It's when that money gets off that things start to break down. No one has confidence. This thing grinds to a halt, and we get caught up in the turmoil of that. And so it's really been a big push to do that. Melissa was been a fantastic employee for 27 years, and it's also a bit of a blessing that she moved on, because it gives us a real good opportunity right now to jump on it at the same time that we've moved into a new strategic business plan, that we have some new commissioners that are on board. We're going into election, so there'll be a couple more new commissioners. We have people that are still involved, have been involved for a number of years, so they can still speak to the evolution of how we got here. Like, it's a really good time for us to be able to pull this off and get it done. Anyway, I'm excited about it.
Well, I hope it'll be clear, because last year wasn't
It's
clear.
a little funky last year.
And so like apples to apples, you have an event coordinator. What are the events that are, the money's coming in on events? So you can balance those to the campgrounds, expenses in the campground, balanced against the expenses for the campground.
In certain opportunities, in certain instances, we'll be able to do that. One of the other things that we've done in order to make this as simple as possible is being able to, each individual department be able to have more control over their specific budget, right? So when you give someone that control, you also give them a great deal of responsibility, and making sure that they're keying things in right, that they're correctly putting things in the right bucket of money. And that starts to become a little bit nervous from my side, right? Because now I'm trying to train somebody to be very, very specific at entering all this stuff incorrectly. And by the time Matt gets it, it could be a whole snarly mess that he has to. And so there is a focus on being able to do that, but also being on focus that if I lose an events coordinator, if I lose a maintenance manager, someone who's responsible for that part of their budget, that the system of the process of maintaining that budget and implementing their costs and their revenue is not so difficult to comprehend, that one, it doesn't get done, right? They're just not able to do the job. I'm an events coordinator. I'm not a numbers person. Or I'm a maintenance manager. I'm not an events person. I mean, I'm not a numbers person. I need that system to be easy enough that they can continue to replicate that, right? And then at at the administrative level between me and Matt, if we need to take deeper dives into specific areas of the business, that we pull that data together. So the budget piece could still have some of that where you're like, hey, I can't really see apples to apples here. It's like, I understand it's done in a way that we keep getting the correct information pumped into the system in a way that's easy for the staff. And then the administrative level, Matt, I need to see everything at the campground, what we were spending on it, how much time we were spending, what the electrical was for this particular thing, right? I can get a more granular look at things that'll allow us to make those business decisions. But if you get really granular at the budget level, what you get is a lot of work for staff that doesn't get completed. All of a sudden it's like, well, I threw it in this bucket and I put it in this bucket. And you're like, well, it really need to go in this bucket. And they're like, well, there's 19 buckets. I don't really understand the difference between this bucket and this bucket. And that gets really complex. And as people come and go, that's how the system sort of breaks down a little bit. So it's been a battle a little bit between how granular do you want? And I want it as granular as possible. I want to know what every blade of grass costs me because that allows me to make the best decisions possible. But if I make it super granular, then I'm requiring all my staff to work at that same level. And it's just not what they do. And it's also hard to keep up as staff comes and goes. So I'm willing to take less granular information and then know that me and Matt are going to have to break that down and be like, all right, well, they sent us this. This certainly doesn't tell us how commercial buildings are doing. I need to see what I'm losing on Flex 6 or making on Flex 6 or Flex 5 or Flex 4. And so that's where it becomes a bit of me and Matt working together to make sure the commission has that information and can make those decisions and see that stuff. But it's not as reflected in the budget as it's not as reflected in the budget as I would like it, but I have to think about staff a little bit. Right now, you can take a pencil. Honestly, you could order a pack of pencils and it could probably go in 6 different buckets and you could make a valid case for why it went in that bucket, right? Well, me and maintenance split them. Well, we used this one, but this one got broke. Well, these ones we bought, right? This was actually, this one went to the bridge and we put it underneath tools and whatever. Well, this one we put under supplies. Well, this one went specifically to office supplies. And it just got so many buckets that things started ending up in all sorts of places. And Melissa had probably the best understanding of which buckets went into which buckets, but Melissa was the only one. So she would put those into buckets. And sometimes you'd say, Melissa, why'd you put it into that bucket? And she'd give you a really good answer. But you say, well, why didn't you put it in this bucket? And she'd just say, well, that's not the bucket I put it into. Okay, how do I explain that? So there's been a lot of me going back and forth with Matt of like, we need to be able to take this to somebody who's a fantastic events coordinator, maintenance manager, marina, whatever their skill set is that we hired them to be and be like, this is the bucket it goes in. Can you see it going in any other bucket? And then being like, no, not really. That makes perfect sense. If money keeps going in all of those places consistently, in a repetitive way that everybody can understand, you can teach new people as they come and go, you'll get consistent data. And with that consistent data, then you can take it apart at administrative level, at the CFO level, and at the commission level, and dive into it. So yes and no. You will undoubtedly want more granular data, just like I do, because that's how we make our decisions. But to get those decisions is going to require me and Matt to sort through some of that data. And it's the handoff to making it easy for staff so that I know I consistently get the right numbers and the right things put in the right places. I mean, we're sorting through stuff right now, right? We lost Melissa. It was a little bit quickly. Genevieve's come in. She's doing a great job on it, but there's categories that don't even make sense, right? And a lot of it's blended over from we change budget year to budget year to budget year to budget year. We're starting with a whole new chart of accounts. We've moved on to QuickBooks Online. We're basically starting from scratch and building it from scratch. So we have that, right?
A question about QuickBooks Online. Are you actually using that to craft your budget this year, or are you still using traditional methods before?
Speak to that a little bit.
We're not officially on QuickBooks Online yet, and we won't be by the time it's probably.
All the categories down and all this stuff.
Yeah, so that is one area where either in this process, one of the things that we can do in QuickBooks is we can merge accounts together. So if we're like, hey, we're going to get rid of this account and it's going to just become part of this account, we're going to merge one into the other. So that way historical data stays and actually becomes part of that account. But there may be some areas where it's like, hey, we had these categories and these two merged together in the future.
My concern was, once you guys are heavily on board with QuickBooks Online, is that something to expect for the next year's, budget committee sessions? Like, we'll be using that as our main planning tool for that?
I don't know that QuickBooks Online is going to be able to budget into the detail. I mean, we use QuickBooks and we put our budget in there at the end, but I don't know that it's going to be something that we can actually like prepare like a budget report out of.
Yeah, I mean, I think the concerns of the commissioners this past year was the QuickBooks Online would be a great tool for us to check in and see kind of the real-time numbers.
Okay.
You know, in the past, we relied heavily on Melissa to provide those, but you know, as we're transitioning, I'm just kind of curious if that visibility will happen after this budget is adopted. So-
Yeah, if that's something that you want, I'm sure we can set up read-only access for the commissioners so they can go in and look at a report that's in there. Yep.
And on top of this, and again, it's sort of building sort of a new system, right? We're gonna get to we're getting those quarterly financial reports. Generally, I would like to invite our budget committee to be present at those quarterly reports, because that's how they get to this point. It's how they get to this point, and they're like, oh, cool, I understand how we got here and it all makes sense. And these are the things you said you were gonna do this year, but you didn't do. And like, instead of getting here at this point, they're like, oh, it's new, it's all new again. And I've missed the last year of what happened. And, you know, I actually don't know how commercial buildings are doing because I can't see it in the budget. And I'm like, well, we did make this presentation where we gathered that data and really were able to fine tune it and bring it to you, to the commission, but it doesn't help the budget committee. And the budget committee really is an important piece for you guys. Like, it allows you guys to focus on other things. I mean, commissioners have a lot to focus on depending on where the port's at any given time. Budget committee really is just looking at the numbers. So the more that we can, and you know, they don't make the decisions about where we spend the money or how we spend the money. They're making sure that it's being reflected in a way that is consistent with budget law, and that they can understand that if somebody asks them, hey, are you sure the port's, you know, doing what they're supposed to be doing with the money? Right? Yes, they do. And we went through it. So having them involved at a quarterly is.
Yeah, I think that kind of solves some of Donna's concerns with granular data.
Yeah.
You know, once we have that in place, I think it'll be a lot more visible. We can see the process throughout the year.
And it's a model that other port commissions use, and one that, you know, I want to get to, right? This is an important piece. And as soon as people start questioning the money, right, it all breaks down. As long as the money piece is handled correctly, then it becomes a political thing. And I can be like, hey, these guys told me this is how they want to spend it. But when it starts getting questioned of where the money is going and are we really dotting I's and crossing T's, that's when we lose public faith. And when we lose public faith, we can't get any work done.
All right. Any other questions or concerns before I motion to adjourn?
We usually at these meetings, we bring food. Does anybody have any sort of preference? Sandwiches, or do you want something better than that? Something different than that?
Subway, I don't know, Subway Stevenson
Yeah, Subway Stevenson sounds good. We'll do that. We'll collect some sandwich orders.
or Gorgeous, I don't know. Something
Cool.
local. find
Cool.
better.
Keep it local. We'll get everybody fed.
Yeah.
We have to get some vegetarian for
Yeah.
or vegan.
absolutely.
Vegan. Yes, sir.
I'll be on a business trip, so there's a 50 chance that I'll not be able to attend.
Okay.
I'll be calling in if I do.
Very cool. And
I
you
don't
will,
need anything to eat next.
And-
22nd.
and you will have an opportunity to see this again as a commission, right? So once it leaves here, it comes to you for the final adoption. So you guys see it one last time and put the stamp of approval on it. So you'll see it again.
Ted is absent. You're welcome to forward your comments to Jeremiah for it too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. If me and you can work through it that week beforehand, like I'll be like, hey, I can definitely represent your comments that, hey, Ted thinks this and. All right, well, we got through the first one pretty easy. This is
Thank you everyone for attending tonight. And I am going to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Do I get a second?
Second.
All right.
All in favor?
All those in favor say aye.
All right, very good.
Nay. All right.
Thanks for coming. They get more interesting after this one, I promise.
Kelly, thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Shelley. Thanks, Brian. I didn't see you slip in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian and Shelley.
Thanks, everybody.